Today we will be discussing the latest Iran protests regarding the woman who was killed for not wearing the headscarf properly. Before we begin, please like and subscribe to our channel. Early on Thursday, anti-government demonstrators in Iran chanted from windows and rooftops in several areas of Tehran, but there were no reports of demonstrations on the streets of the city, where police have been waging a harsh crackdown recently. It was not immediately obvious if it meant there had been a decrease in the widespread protests following the killing earlier this month of Mahsa Amini, 22, who was arrested by the morality police for reportedly donning the required Islamic headscarf too loosely. Mahsa Amini was killed. Anger against the nation's top clerics has been directed at them in response to her death. The demonstrations have been intermittently covered by Iranian media since they started. The fact that they failed to mention any fresh demonstrations in Tehran may indicate that none took place or that media controls have been reinforced by the government. In addition, there was no evidence of torched garbage cans or debris in the early hours of Thursday in central Tehran, unlike after earlier nighttime street protests. State media cited Mohsen Mansouri, the provincial governor of Tehran, as declaring that security has been restored and protests in the capital have come to an end, but from inside buildings, where it is more difficult for the police to apprehend them. People could be heard screaming death to the tyrant. It was unclear right away how widespread the protests were in other parts of the nation. On certain university campuses, like Shiraz University in the south, students have continued to demonstrate. Authorities continue to limit access to WhatsApp and Instagram, two social media platforms that demonstrators used to coordinate and disseminate information, in an effort to prevent midday protests. They are also severely limiting internet access. The past 12 days have seen clashes between Iranian police and protesters in dozens of towns. Since the protests started on September 17, state television has stated that at least 41 police officers and protesters have died. At least 14 people have died, according to official government claims compiled by the Associated Press, while more than 1,500 protesters have been detained. Norway recommended its people against making any needless trips to Iran and advised them to take caution and avoid demonstrations in huge crowds while there. A journalist who covered Amini's funeral earlier this month in the Kurdish town of Sakez has been detained by authorities in the meantime. Her name is Ilahi Mohammadi. She is one among many journalists who have been held in custody after Amini's passing. Late on Thursday, Iranian media reported the detention of Hossein Mahini, a former soccer player, and female musician Mona Borzoui for allegedly encouraging unrest. Celebrities and other public personalities who have openly backed the protesters have frequently come under fire from hardliners in Iran, who have called for their arrest. Their arrests lacked any additional information that was accessible right away. The morality police held Amini, who, according to the authorities, did not suffer any abuse before passing away from a heart attack. Her family has disputed that claim, claiming they were informed by other prisoners that she had been severely beaten and that they had been denied access to her body. Iran's President Ebrahim Raisi reiterated his promise to look into her death in a speech he gave late on Wednesday. However, he said that the government will not put up with any risks to national safety. Amini's death has made her an emblem of opposition to Iran's theocracy, which mandates that women cover their hair and wear modest clothing in public. Recent years have seen an uptick in protests against the government, largely because of a protracted economic crisis that was made worse by international sanctions. According to Shireen Ebadi, an Iranian campaigner who won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2003, the current demonstrations are distinct from those that took place in the past, and there is a potential of destroying the system, she told the German channel Deutsche Welle. Unlike other demonstrations, folks aren't being placid. When the security forces beat them, they beat the security forces back, claimed Ebadi, who left the nation in 2009 following a previous assault on dissent. She urged the international community to impose sanctions on those responsible for the deaths of demonstrators and withdraw ambassadors from Iran. The protests are being attributed by the Iranian government to unnamed foreign actors who are allegedly seeking to stir up trouble. According to Iran's state-run IRNA news agency, the foreign ministry summoned the French chargé d'affaires on Thursday and accused them of interfering with Iranian internal matters by endorsing the protests. However, even the hardline tabloid Jamhuri Islami conceded in an editorial that the protests represent genuine rage. When it comes to putting an end to the demonstrations, the authorities shouldn't assume that the unrest is over and won't spread. The current state of affairs resembles sparks hidden beneath the ashes that could rekindle. That's a wrap for today's video. What are your thoughts on these protests? Let us know in the comments section below. And make sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more future updates.